In 1996, specifically August 18th, 1996, after a normal Sunday Catholic Mass at Santa Maria y Capellito in Buenos Aires, the priest by the name of Father Alejandro Pazet found a consecrated host. To the secular people and Protestants, a host is that white cracker wafer bread that Catholics eat during Sunday Mass. One of them was found discarded on the floor after Mass. Now, in traditional Catholic protocol, when something like that happens, you're supposed to take it and place it in a container of water to dissolve in the tabernacle. This is a tabernacle. A tabernacle is a locked container used to store the consecrated wafers, aka host. Hope you're following me so far. The reason why the cracker, not a white person, was put in water is because us Catholics do not treat the cracker/wafer as a wafer. It's part of the Eucharist, which is the central sacrament of Catholic Christianity, meaning the sacrament itself is the ritual action during Mass in which the bread and the wine are consecrated. The consecrated element after consecrations are now the real body and blood of Jesus Christ. Anyways, when a consecrated host cannot be consumed, it is put into water so it can dissolve completely. And once it breaks down and no longer retains the appearance of bread, the real presence is believed to no longer be present. At that time, the water is poured into like a special sink that drains directly into the ground versus the sewer to ensure, it returns to the earth versus being mixed up with human feces.
Hi, Georgie. Aren't you going to say hello?
So when Father Pazet checked on the host a couple days later, specifically August 26, 1996, he realized the host, it didn't dissolve. It now appeared to resemble a blood-colored tissue. Father Pazet then notified Bishop Bergoglio, aka future Pope Francis, and Pope Francis, still a bishop at the time, immediately ordered professional photographs and a strict chain of custody procedures. The sample was kept securely refrigerated and periodically examined, and they noticed no decay detected despite the material sitting in water for years. Oh yeah, sorry, I failed to mention that it was stored from 1996 to 1999. And in 1999, Bishop Bergoglio, again future pope, ordered the sample to be sent out for scientific examination because this was a little weird and strange.
Weird.
The instructions, however, was not to tell the scientist where the sample came from to avoid any bias. So the scientists thought they were just examining something that looked like, bloody tissue. They had no idea, I repeat, no idea that it was Christian related. They didn't know anything about the sample, except that they were instructed to test the sample to find out what it is. And here comes Frederick Zugibe, a well-known cardiologist and forensic pathologist, examined the sample and he found the following. Cue the serious music. It was a human heart tissue from the left ventricle, and not just any cardiac tissue. It shows signs of inflammation, meaning the person it belonged to had suffered trauma. White blood cells were still intact. Those don't survive unless the tissue was living when it was sampled. And the blood type? AB, the same type found in the Shroud of Turin, by the ways.
This Christian holy relic is referred to as the Shroud of Turin.
The Shroud of Turin is this amazing relic. At bottom, it's a piece of cloth. It shows a very faint sort of image of a crucified man. And the crucified man calls us to remember Jesus' death and resurrection.
There was no decomposition, no preservatives, no scientific explanation for how a piece of heart tissue could survive years in a container after originating from a wafer that was supposed to dissolve in a few days. And here's where it gets even crazier. This was not the first time something like this happened. In the 8th century, in Lanciano, Italy, there was a nearly identical event. Host turns into flesh, blood type AB, cardiac muscle, and a sample is still publicly, I repeat, publicly displayed today. 1,200 years later, it is still preserved. So, let's talk about a thing that us Catholics do every Mass called the Eucharist. Hit my intro. Welcome to my channel. I'm the Catholic Observer, a father, a husband, a son, a friend, and not a debater. Just your average friendly neighborhood Catholic that judges all you heathens. Now, the Eucharist, what is it? Why do Catholics line up every Sunday like a 1930s breadline to eat the flavorless piece of bread the size of a poker chip? And maybe, depending where you go, you may drink a little bit of wine.
Wine is actually good.
Well, Catholics and all Christians from various denominations all agree there was a Last Supper, right? You've seen it in shows like The Chosen, you've seen it in various movies like The Passion of the Christ. You pretty much see it in a lot of paintings and famous paintings. It's even in the Bible. So there's no disputing of the understanding that before Jesus was crucified, he sat down with his apostles and he broke bread known as the Last Supper. And Jesus at the Last Supper said, according to Matthew 26 through 28, "Take and eat, this is my body." Then he took a cup and he gave thanks and gave it to them, saying, "Drink from it, all of you, for this is my blood of the covenant, which will be shed on behalf of many for the forgiveness of sins." Mark 14:22 through 24, "Take it, this is my body. This is my blood of the covenant, which will be shed for many." Luke 22:19 through 20, "This is my body, which will be given for you. Do this in memory of me. This cup is the new covenant in my blood, which will be shed for you." 1 Corinthians 11:23 through 25. And this is St. Paul's writing about the Eucharist around 54 AD, before the Gospels were actually written. "This is my body that is for you. Do this in remembrance of me. This cup is the new covenant in my blood." Paul then adds a warning Catholics take seriously. 1 Corinthians 11:27 through 29. "Whoever eats the bread or drinks the cup of the Lord unworthily will have to answer for the body and blood of the Lord. For anyone who eats and drinks without discerning the body eats and drinks judgment on himself." So Catholics, the overachievers for 2,000 years, went, "Bet, we'll literally do that forever." But here's a part that actually freaks out people. Catholics don't believe it's just symbolic. It's not like a religious souvenir. It's not pretend. It's not holy carbs. It's not Jesus-flavored bread and grape juice. Catholics believe the bread and wine becomes Jesus, but not in a cannibal way, but it becomes Jesus himself. Body, blood, soul, and divinity, even though it still looks like bread and wine. I know, on paper, it sounds like a setup for the History Channel alien documentary. And it gives TikTok creators a field day to make fun of, technically, Jesus. Let's just be real. This was held universally by Christians from the 1st century all the way until the 16th century. Roughly 1,500 years of uninterrupted, unanimous belief among all major Christians. And it actually makes me sad to see how it's now been relegated to crackers and grape juice at some of these Protestant churches, and how it's just a symbol for so many people. You see, the Catholic Church calls it transubstantiation, which is just a 37-syllable way of saying it looks like bread and wine, but it's not bread and wine anymore. Deal with it and get over it. But why do Catholics receive communion? Because Jesus said so. "Whoever eats my flesh and drinks my blood has eternal life." John 6. And instead of responding, you mean this is symbolic, right? No, the early Christians said, yes, we understand. And they started doing exactly that, even when it got them killed. And did you know that early Christians were actually accused of being cannibals because outsiders heard about people gathering secretly to eat the body and drink the blood of someone they called Lord?
I am a cannibal, huh?
That would freak out anybody back then. And they weren't wrong about the description, but it definitely misunderstood the theology behind it. So every Mass is not just a prayer service or a gathering of like-minded people to hear some awesome liturgy or inspirational words to make you feel good.
Yeah, because the vision I'm about to give you, it might get nasty. And do you hear and see the responses of the people?
This is crazy. This is literally crazy. Are you people insane?
Because it's really not about you. It's also not Catholic karaoke where all of us repeat simultaneously the same words and prayers. Catholics believe it's representation of the Last Supper and the sacrifice of Jesus on the cross. We are not, I repeat, we are not sacrificing Jesus over and over and over every single Sunday. Every time I hear
Catholics think they're re-crucifying Jesus every Sunday, I feel like this.
Are you people retarded? That's not a rhetorical question. I literally want you to email me back telling me if you're mentally slow.
Or the worst myth, the belief was invented in the Middle Ages. I mean, come on, people, do a little bit of research.
Seriously.
Stay off of TikTok and IG.
No! God, please, no! 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 No!
The real presence is affirmed in the Bible. 1 Corinthians 11, written around 54 AD, like I already said. Dozens of early Christian writings before 300 AD. Every church father without exception, including Martin Luther. Yes, Martin Luther absolutely believed in the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist. Granted, he rejected the Catholic explanation of transubstantiation, but he did not reject the literal presence of Christ in the bread and wine. In fact, I think he just renamed it Sacramental Union. I got so many issues with Martin Luther, I'm sorry. I used to respect that guy, not so much. That's why receiving the Eucharist is the center of Catholic life. That's why Catholics will crawl to Mass even on a broken leg before missing it. In fact, the church that I go to has a parishioner who's maybe in his mid or late 80s, barely can walk, and has an oxygen tank attached to his body. And he never, ever misses Mass.
You know how much I sacrificed?
That's how important it is to him because Jesus said so. Meanwhile, I got friends who are too busy to go to church because 10 a.m. Mass is too early, or they want to go to Disney World, or they're hungover and can't make Mass, or they want to build Legos.
I'm for real. I'm for real.
So basically what you're saying is that all of that is more important than God.
Yeah.
That's why priests guard the host like federal evidence of the Epstein file, and we're willing to fight over a host that has been stolen for Black Mass. Which, by the way, if you don't know what Black Mass is, it's a sacrilegious parody of the Catholic Mass typically performed in a satanic or anti-Catholic context to mock or desecrate the Eucharist and Christian worship. They don't believe in God, and they think it's stupid, yet they try to sneak into Mass and grab themselves a consecrated host during communion to take back to their altar for whatever satanic ritual that they're performing. And anytime people hear about their Black Mass, best believe you have a Catholic there ready to jump and protect the host. And by the way, that's why it's actually important to take the host on your tongue instead of in your hand, because of things like the Black Mass or dropping it on the floor. That's why it matters when something like the Buenos Aires or the Lanciano miracles happen. It's real. It's not symbolic. In fact, I encourage you to look up some of these Eucharistic miracles, because if the Catholic Church is right, then it's not just a symbol. It's not just a ritual. It means Jesus meant what he said. And he didn't leave us a book instead of himself. He left himself in a book and on the altar, which was tradition before and after Christ. So yeah, it may look like a wafer, cracker, and wine, but according to Catholic theology, you're witnessing the most important act of worship on earth. It just happens to come in low-carb form, and I don't understand why everything else in the Bible is taken literal, but not this. All of a sudden, after 1,500 years, it's no longer literal. Now that I've scared away every single Protestant, atheist, agnostic, and anyone who thought that they clicked on a normal YouTube video, let's go just a little bit deeper. But first, can you smash that like button? Can you subscribe, please, and share so you can help me out, help you spread the word without having to knock on someone's door at 6 a.m. in the morning? We all know we can't stand that. Wait. You don't have to believe any of this. In fact, there's this claim that I kept hearing, and I looked into it, that 70% of Catholics believe the Eucharist is just a symbol. And that comes from a 2019 Pew Research Center study, but the number is often misrepresented. You see, the survey includes anyone who identifies as Catholic, including people who never attend Mass, do not practice their faith, or have no understanding of Catholic teaching. Now, when you look at the Catholics who attend Mass weekly, belief in a real presence rises to around 63%. And other studies from Cara, for example, show that over 90% of weekly Mass goers accept church teachings on the Eucharist. The 70% figure mainly reflects non-practicing or poorly catechized Catholics who identify culturally with the church, but do not understand or really follow its teachings. So the statistics is technically based on real data, but it does not accurately represent what practicing Catholics believe. So when you hear that, hit them with some of my Catholic observer knowledge. As I was saying, you don't have to believe any of this. You don't have to accept the miracles, the theology, the history, or even the idea that the first century Jewish rabbi is present in a wafer the size of a Kennedy $50. But I tell you this, every empire that has tried to erase the Catholic Church is gone. Every philosopher who said the Eucharist was the superstitions is dust. Every king, every dictator, every regime, every wave of secularism, they all rose and they all fell. And somehow this strange, fragile, humble little host is still worshipped, still adored, still feared, and still mocked, and still changing lives. And if the Eucharist is just a symbol, then it's the most overpowered symbol in history of the human race. But if it's real, then God, who created the galaxies, is willing to hide inside something that looks like bread just to get close to you. That's either insanity or it's love on a level we don't even have language for. So doubt it, question it, wrestle with it. I know I did. But just don't ignore it. Because if Catholics are wrong, we're just weird people eating a dry cracker every single Sunday. But if we're right, then every tabernacle in every forgotten corner of the world is the closest thing on earth to the burning bush. A tangible piece of what we believe is Jesus. And every Catholic Mass is heaven breaking into time. And I'll say this, it's ironic that we Christians believe a man was born of a virgin, healed the blind, raised the dead, walked on water, multiplied bread and fish, cast out demons, calmed storms with his voice, turned water into wine, and resurrected from his own tomb. But the moment someone says he might still be present in the Eucharist, people suddenly think that's crazy. Think about it.